get it.
Okay, so we're going to move on into a section that just has to do with rational numbers. Now this is we're only doing 3 sections out of this chapter, but they are there's no graphing, okay, there's no graphing, so some of you are smiling about that. It's detailed, but as long as you pay attention to the details, you got it. Some of it you'll remember, okay, so it's building off of other stuff that you're very familiar with, hopefully. Let me get to the right spot here. Okay, so let's say that I have, is that the one that's good or not? Nope, must put that one in the trash.
The red one is kind of like that too.
I swear somebody just comes in here and just does this.
What?
Until
That was
they're-
not like that yesterday.
Right, so,
That one's kind of good too.
and I hate to take them with me because then if somebody needs them, they're not here. Okay. Let's say that we have, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna do what?
Sharpen.
You better hurry. Okay, let's say I have something like this. This would graph something, okay, but we're not gonna graph it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the details behind what this couldn't equal, and we're gonna simplify this. We're gonna put it in a simpler form. So you remember in math that that's an empty set. You cannot have 0 on the bottom of a fraction because if you take 0 and divide it into it, what can I multiply by 0 and get 4? 0?
Well, no, that wouldn't work.
It doesn't work because 0 times 0 doesn't give me 4. So what can I multiply by 0 that's going to give me a 4 right here?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So that's considered an empty set. So this thing, I cannot have 0 on the bottom. I'm not allowed to have 0 on the bottom. So looking at it, what would make me, what numbers, what values for x would make me have 0 on the bottom? Oh, come on. What if I put a -1 right there? -1 plus 1 is 0. 0 times anything is 0. That's going to give me a 0 on the bottom, is it not?
Yeah.
Okay, so x cannot equal -1. What about over here?
2.
2 or
-2.
-2. Okay, x cannot equal 2. X cannot equal -2. Because if I put either one of those in there, then this will be 0, and I would multiply this times 0, and I would have 0 on the bottom. Does that make sense? Okay, if you, and we're not going to do it, but if you were to graph this, you would have holes at -1, at 2, and at -2, or you would have asymptotes, depending on what it graphs. But your graph can never cross the -1. So in other words, if you have this graph, then it can never cross that. It can never have a point there, and it can never have a point here. Okay? Now, it might be just that you have a hole right there, that your graph crosses it and you have a hole, or it might stop right there, just depending on what it graphs. But that would make this whole thing undefined. Before I solve it, I have to figure out what would make it undefined. Do we understand that? Okay, so we're just looking at the bottom and going, what would make me have a 0 on the bottom? Now, you can always do that by going x plus 1 equals 0, x squared minus 4 equals 0. When I solve this, I get x is equal to -1. If x is -1, then I have 0 on the bottom. If I solve this one, take the square root of that, I have plus or minus 2. So plus or minus 2 is going to make the bottom equal to 0 as well, right? So those values right here cannot exist. So now I look at it and I go, okay, I need to reduce this or simplify this. Okay, this is where factoring comes in. So I look to see, well, I guess I should have left that up there. I look to see if there's any part of that that can be reduced down. I look for factors that the top and the bottom have in common. What's a factor? Okay, what if I asked you for what the factors of 24 are? What would you tell me?
6, 4, 8, 3.
Okay, numbers that I multiply together to get that number. 6 and 4, 3 and 8, 2 and 12, 4, let's see, 24 and 1, right? Okay, those are all the factors of 24. Okay, so they're things that are multiplied together to get the 24. So if I look for the factors of the top, the factors are 2, x plus 1. The factors of the bottom, technically, is there anything I can do to factor the bottom more? What?
Difference of squares.
Difference of squares, right there. X plus 1, x plus 2, and x minus 2. Okay, I want to do that. And if I had done that first, it would have been easy to come up with those three. Okay? Do I have any factors? So that's 3 factors on the bottom. Do I have any factors that are in common, the top and the bottom? What?
X plus 1.
X plus 1. So that's equal to 1. So I can mark that out. So when I simplify it, it's 2x over x plus 2, x minus 2, or if you wanted to write it like this, you could. Okay? Now, I cannot turn around and go, well, I got an x there, and I've got an x there. I can't mark those out because that whole thing is a factor, and the whole thing has to go. You're looking for factors that the top and the bottom have in common. Okay? Make sense? Okay, let's do, compared to the last chapter, this stuff's pretty easy. Okay, it will be. I think, I hope. No, I knew the last chapter would be a little rough. Okay, what about something like this? 3a cubed minus a to the 4th over 2a cubed minus 6a squared. Okay? And it says simplify. And now when it says simplify, it also means I have to figure out what a cannot be. Well, before I do anything, I have to factor. Okay, I have to factor the top and I have to factor the bottom. So looking at the top, is there anything I can do to the top? What can I do to the top of this problem? Is there anything I can do?
I don't see. Well, I don't really know what to do.
Do they have, those two things have anything in common?
We have
A to the
3.
a to the 3rd power. Okay, so I'm going to factor out an a to the 3rd power, which is going to give me a 3 minus a, right? Would you agree with that? Okay, is there anything I can do to the bottom?
2a squared.
2a squared. So I factor that out. That's going to leave me an a squared minus 3. Yes, no, maybe?
no.
Probably, yeah.
2a cubed.
I think you need 2a, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, you got,
But then you
like
factor
that.
out a squared.
No, wait. You took out 2a squared.
Oh, you said an a squared.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes a difference. Okay, so if we have an a squared, then we've got something like that, right?
Yes.
All right, now that's looking kind of suspicious because we have a 3 minus a on the top and we have an a minus 3 on the bottom. Can we make those match?
Yeah.
Okay.
How?
By adding.
What if I took a -1 out of that? Could I do that? If I take a -1 out, then that makes that negative and that makes that positive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, now do those two things match?
Yeah.
They do, because I can switch this around and go a minus 3, which is what I have here, right? Okay, now, those match, the whole thing goes. The whole thing that's in that parentheses has to go to be able to mark it out. Then so what I have left is I have a -a cubed over a 2a squared. Okay, well first, before I mark anything out, what can a not equal? I didn't do that part. What could A not equal here? What would make this parentheses 0?
Positive 3.
Positive 3. So A can't equal a positive 3. What could A not equal right here?
0?
0, that's it. Okay, because if A was equal to 0, then the whole thing would be equal to 0, right? Because I would have 0 times that, which is 0. Okay, so those are the two things that A cannot equal. Well, then I am reducing. Okay, so I marked out that. Is there anything I can do to that? Do you remember when you have a base number that's the same and you have a power, what do you do to it? You do. You subtract and you place it where
On the top.
you place it where the larger exponent is. Okay, so that means I'm going to have a negative A on the top and I'm going to have a 2 on the bottom.
Couldn't you have done that over there?
Do what?
Couldn't you have done that at the beginning?
How was she?
No, I can't reduce that down because I've got this minus with it.
Okay.
The only time I can reduce it is when it is an individual factor, okay? So I have to make it made up of all factors. Those are not factors, they're subtracted with each other, so I can't do it at that point. That's probably the number one mistake that's made in this, is that we try to reduce it when we can't. Do what?
You can't add a plus negative?
Yeah, you could, that's not what he was saying. He's saying, why couldn't I just reduce here and just mark out that A3 and A3? And I can't do that because I have a plus and I have minus. Those are not factors, okay? It's not until I get over here and I say this times this equals this that I have factors. I have to separate it into its factors. Okay, do y'all understand this? Do you remember this? This is the same as saying negative 1 times A times A times A. We didn't do it this way, but, and we go, that goes away, that goes away, that goes away. Oh, I'm left with an A on the top. Okay, but rather than draw that out, we go 3 minus 2 is 1. 1 goes on the top because that's where the highest power is. Y'all remember? Sort of? Kind of? Okay. I think it was like chapter 5, so it's been a while ago. Okay? A lot of math ago.
Well, we also did it last year.
Yes, we did hit the sum last year. We're going to go a little bit beyond where we went last year, but. All right, let's look at this one. All right, first thing we want to do is figure out what A or B cannot equal. Okay, so I got two variables in there. And I don't know if it meant, did it mean? Yeah, it did. Okay, so what can A not equal? Look on the bottom. Is there anything A cannot equal on this one? No, because there's no way to make this a negative 4. Okay, do you understand that? Because negative 4 plus positive 4 is 0. So how can I take something squared and get a negative 4 out of it? I can't. So I don't need to look at that one. What can A not equal here? 2. Okay, because that's going to be what would make this factor a 0. Which then when I multiply the other factors by it, I get 0. What can A not equal here? 0. That's it. Okay. What can B not equal? 0. Perfect. Okay? Because that's the only thing that would make this whole thing 0 if B is 0. So then 0 times anything is 0. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, can I factor those anymore? Is there anything else I can do to those?
The A squared plus 4. Can you get rid of that?
You are going to get rid of that, okay? And here's the thing, I can't break it down anymore before I start marking things out, okay? Because this is not a difference of squares because it's not a difference, it's a sum. So I look at it and I go, well, you know, it's really written as 3 factors. This times this times this, and this times this times this. So it's already written in factors. And I cannot factor that anymore. I can't break any of those down. So the very first thing you see is you've got this on the top and this on the bottom. So they go away. So then I've got a B minus 3 on the top and I've got a minus 2 on the bottom. Can't do anything else with those, can I? Okay, they don't match up. But then I look over here. What about the 2 and the 8? And
2A out? No.
what does 2 eighths reduce down to? 1/4, okay? So I have a 1 on the top and a 4 on the bottom. Okay, then I have an a squared and I have an a. So what am I gonna do with that?
An A on top and a B squared on bottom?
Yep, an a on the top and a b squared on the bottom. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
is that making sense? All right, I'm gonna give you one to try, okay?
I missed the beginning, can we go to that real quick? Cause.
This part over here,
in the
was that
beginning,
what
when
you
I walked
missed?
out,
I don't know what I was talking about when you walked out.
I don't, probably not.
Okay, this is what, you know, I cannot have 0 on the bottom of a fraction. Okay, did you get that part or you weren't here?
I got it.
Okay, then this is whatever makes that bottom equal to 0.
Mhm.
So if I plug the 2 in here, 2 minus 2 is 0, so this whole thing will be 0, and I can't have that. Okay, if I put a 0 right here, okay, for the a, then this would be 0, and I'm multiplying it times that, and I can't have that.
What about the top?
I don't care about the top. The top, I can have any number I want. I don't even look at the top as far as what can be undefined, okay?
Why?
Do I?
Why?
Because I'm allowed to have 0 on the top. Is there any number I can't have on the top of a fraction? No, that's why I don't look at the top. Okay, it's only the bottom that I can't have 0 as. Okay, let me give you one to do. We'll give you 2 to do.
What's 3 to do?
Because these are a little bit different. You gotta tell me what the x and the y cannot equal, and then you gotta simplify it. And on this one, you gotta tell me what the c cannot equal, and then you have to simplify it.